Hello, and welcome to The Gardens, located in sunny... The Gardens is one of the largest combined zoological habitat and theme parks in the world. With over 72 thrilling attractions and nearly 11,000 animals in our care, we know that every member of your family will find something incredible each time you visit. But that's just the start of your adventure. To really see what the park has to offer, I'll turn you over to our top 2 guides. Take it away, boys!
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the weekly discussion of K. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. My name is Coleman.
And my name is Mitchell, welcoming you back. I don't even know why you bothered to say the weekly discussion part.
You know what?
Anymore.
I pray every time, and I keep it in there, because I fear if I say monthly, or if I say bi-weekly, then it's going to be even longer between episodes.
Just rewrite the whole thing. What does it matter?
Because we started with this, and maybe someday we'll get to a weekly episode. Who knows?
Throw caution to the wind.
Well, welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of K. Applegate's. That's crazy.
No, you could substitute with any adjective the profound discussion of K. Applegate's. See, that's good.
The immense discussion of K.
The immaculate discussion.
The immaculately conceived discussion of K. Applegate's 1996 book series. There's a lot of things.
That would be good.
Well, we didn't come here to talk about the opening. We came here to talk about number 18, The Decision.
Ooh, nice segue.
That was a great segue.
Yeah, it is. Do you remember who talked about... And then neither of us remember.
I think it's your turn. I think I've talked the last couple times. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's my turn too.
Talk it up.
To talk about this book. So, we are talking number 18, The Decision. I will read the back of the book. Axe and the Animorphs are about to have a huge problem. It starts when they decide to morph mosquitoes in order to slip by some unsuspecting Yeerks. It ends with them stuck in zero space with no idea how they got there, no way to get back to Earth, and no oxygen. Luckily, an Andalite scout ship finds them before it's too late. But now Axe is finally with his own people, and he doesn't know if he ever wants to go back to Earth. For ellipses.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the cover.
Yeah, I mean, this cover's pretty cool. I mean, the green's a little weird. They tried to go
not bad.
Buggy with it, you know? Which is fine.
Well, they have to. It's the Mosquito Morph book.
I know. It's also tough for me. I don't know if I'm getting worse, but I see just their depiction of Andalites, and it's just so goofy looking.
I know, right? Why couldn't they do a more natural pose?
I think they thought this was natural for the 90s.
Maybe, I guess, but it doesn't look like he's in any sort of action.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like he's standing there dopey looking.
Hey, it's Axe, alright? He's kind of dopey. But maybe they were trying to put him in an awkward position because that's how all the other kids are. And maybe that'll make him look like a real boy if he's also in an awkward position.
There was one book where Marco was diving into the water like a little torpedo.
It's true.
Look on the inside cover. Is that just a monster mosquito or what?
Oh, hold on. I have actually never seen the inside cover of this book, so it's going to be a reveal on the show.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. A, that's a big mosquito, and B, I'm pretty sure that's Robin Williams' hand.
It is kind of hairy and disgusting.
It's such a close-up of a hand, and then you've got a glowing, like, African mosquito.
Dude, oh, you know what this was?
Floating above it.
This is the marketing team. When they heard that this was the mosquito book, and they're like, it lands on somebody's hand. Okay, that's it.
They didn't even hear that.
They had one person put his hand down on a chair, snapped a photo, threw in a clip art mosquito, and called it a day.
It really is like a clip art mosquito. It's like someone drew it for like a caricature of mosquito. It doesn't look like an actual photorealistic mosquito.
Yeah, I don't think that's what mosquitoes look like, man. That is weird.
I don't know. But yeah, and it's just like badly photoshopped. Like they literally just went into the main menu for making things blend in Photoshop and just put outside glow, maybe lower the opacity a little bit.
It looks like it was just thrown on there.
It's pretty bad. But I like the color scheme of the book. It's like a really deep reddish purplish kind of background. That looks
Yeah,
cool.
I like the color too. The like lime bleak green I'm not a huge fan of on the spine, you know. But...
Not a huge fan of the awkward faux Beatles log line of this book. Change a little, change a lot, just change. It's like something. It's like someone trying to sound like John Denver or John Lennon or something. And
it's all because of Yoko Ono.
Or Cassie, whichever. She's the Yoko Ono of this book. So
yeah, well, you know what? Let's dive into it. This one starts out kind of different from most books, but in a good way, I guess, with Axe getting a job in quotation marks at the food court, which goes about as well as you would imagine, which is terrible.
Just another Axe trying to get a Cinnabon joke.
Yeah, it's really nothing we haven't seen before. Just more of Axe freaking out.
I kind of hope the next couple Axe books kind of steer clear of the mall, because it's now starting to get like every Axe books. We got to have him in a movie theater at the mall, you know, freaking out about food, or he's near the mall, or he has to go to the mall for some reason. You know, it's just, we can move away.
Yeah,
we got that joke.
They'll get him out of his element pretty soon. He still has not formed his scoop on Earth. Still waiting for that to happen.
I also like the fact that he's kind of a unreliable narrator. Like the fact that he's talking to the Andalite people with his narration. He's like, and I represent a perfect human morph and how they act in their natural habitat, you know, and obviously in the actual action, he's freaking out and eating cigarette butts and everything else.
Yeah. So we get that joyous scene. It doesn't last too long. It's just mostly for the recap. Cut to everyone later in the woods, and they are walking along talking on their way to meet Eric the Chi, which is where they get the best missions from.
And I like that they have a little bit of a scene where the Animorphs are, they kind of show up Eric a little bit. They're acting like they know their shit at this point. You know, they're Eric, you know, he supposedly came alone, and immediately they call up to Tobias, and Tobias is like, yeah, except for those two other Chi hiding in the woods that are in plain sight.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool little moment where they're like, you know, we're kind of a better team than you think we are.
Yeah, which is cool because the Chi are old and wise and know what they're doing as far as blending in. And,
yeah, except for hiding out in the forest. They haven't mastered that yet.
Well, the Animorphs, you know, they know that forest really well.
Well, yeah, Tobias too. He explicitly states, he's like, yeah, I know where the trees are in this forest.
They're in there every other day, so I don't understand.
So Eric tells him all about this second-ranking guy in the Secret Service, and he's got the worst name ever, Hewlett Aldershot III, which I am convinced is just something that Applegate and Grant pulled out of their collective asses.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it for that purpose. It's a purposely bad name.
Yeah, and Eric's telling him about this guy because just in the dumbest Yerk plot ever, Visit 3 had Chapman run over the guy with his van.
I know, right?
It's just so simple-minded and just hilariously bad.
Well, we always question why they don't do more just stuff out in the open like this, and when they finally do it, we think it's just ridiculous.
Well, this literally could have been a plot point like Breaking Bad or something. Like villains who don't know how to be villains. Like I picture Visitor 3 with Chapman being like, "Hey, there he is. Why don't you hit him with the van?
Gun it.
Gun it." It's
Chapman's
like a stoner movie.
He's gripping the steering wheel, just sweating profusely.
Seriously, for the Animorphs live action movie, Bryan Cranston, Visitor 3, Aaron Paul plays Chapman.
Never mind that the age differences doesn't really work. But...
Doesn't matter. It fits.
Well, this guy is important, obviously, because he's the second-ranking dude in the Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so important about this is that nobody knows that Chapman is run him down in his Suburban. And so now he's sitting in a hospital bed in a coma. And no one knows about this, because apparently they lack driver's licenses in the 90s.
And it's interesting. I mean, I guess it's the only good part about the plan is the fact that the Yeerks run the hospital. I mean, they're constantly up to no good there. So I assume
so you think, until a little bit later in this book.
They have a good bit of it locked down, at least like a wing or something.
Right, yeah. West Wing.
But yeah, so they, the Animorphs, go to check on the guy in Seagull Morph, just to scope it out, see if they can get to him before the Yeerks get to do. Even though I don't know why this guy wasn't implanted with a Yeerk upon, check-in.
Well, as Visor 3 expositionally states, his brain is comatose, which apparently renders them useless as hosts. So they are unable to infest him, and then he boldly states that instead he'll acquire him and work out his evil plot that way. Although, damn, that's a lot of effort to go through.
Who knew that just hitting him with a car wouldn't, flawlessly work out for them?
That's how Visor 3 is going to start solving all of his problems.
He's going to have Chapman running around town in a, Astrovan. Just knocking people back.
The final battle in the last book is the Animorphs against Chapman driving a Hummer.
No, see, Visor 3 probably didn't even know that this guy was Secret Service. Visor 3 probably just told Chapman to start running over people on the half chance that one of them's an Andalite bandit and morph. So
yeah, that could be it. Just run down anything. Animals, especially animals.
You see a skunk? Get that skunk.
Yeah, we hate skunks now. Cats, leave them alone. Bring them to me, but leave them alone.
You hit a cat, you're dead, Chapman.
So as they're doing their little peep show, watching him in the hospital room, Visor 3 somehow takes notice of the birds on the ledge and shifts his body into an area of the room where they can't see him, and proceeds to morph. And we get, this is the Kafit bird that he morphs into. That's not the same bird that Elfingor morphs.
It is. I was about to say that because Elfinger went through the whole talking about how it's one of the first morphs that most warriors choose. Because, they have to choose at least one morph right when they get the morphing ability to kind of test it out and pass like a driver's ed test with morphing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying, it's strange that he is so concerned that Visor 3 has this morph from the Andalite homeworld because, his the Andalite that he took over was already old when he took him over. Why wouldn't he have one of these morphs? It's incredibly possible.
Aileron, as his host body, should have that morph. Like, it's not unreasonable to think that he wouldn't have a Kafit bird. That's why I couldn't get behind this whole part of the story where he's doubting he's doubting his people, basically. And I get why they did it, but it just seems so shoehorned in.
It really is, yeah. I mean, if they would have done something, I don't know, like morphine something that was recently brought to the Andalite homeworld, or something that he would have known that way. Or...
Here's the thing, though, is that this plot doesn't actually go anywhere in this book. He mentions it maybe one or two other times.
Well, I think it was supposed to go towards the idea of trusting his own people, and then we see one of his own people, go against him.
Yeah, but it's bizarrely unrelated and seemingly unnecessary.
Maybe it comes up in another book.
I wonder. Yeah, is that in another book? Did Visor 3 actually go to the Andalite homeworld?
Maybe they're trying to weave in some kind of overall mythology storyline or something. I don't know.
Who knows? Well, they could have done a little bit better job with patching that plot in.
You could
in this
almost, if you wanted to play devil's advocate, you could almost say that it's a young Andalite who's alone and still dealing with his own insecurities and his own worries, just overreacting and being paranoid about his arch nemesis, who he's already freaking out about because he's had a couple chances to kill him and he's missed out.
Yeah, you could explain it away many different ways, I'm sure. I just thought a little bit more thought could have went into it.
Yeah.
But in morphing this Kafit bird, which is like super bird in the air, and it can spear everyone else who are, seagulls. They fly away, and Axe manages to land on a rooftop, and Visor 3 follows, and then they demorph for a little tail-to-tail action.
Which I was not expecting this early in the book. I mean, this is like an end-of-the-book kind of thing to happen. And it's an incredibly badass little scene. I mean, this is...
Yeah, but the actual action of it is about a paragraph.
It is, but, I mean, it has tension there. The fact that Axe and Visor 3 are both in their Andalite bodies, and there's a chance for a tail-to-tail fight. I mean, it's incredibly exciting for this early in the book.
It is. You know what? When Axe lands there and he sees Visor 3, and then the chapter breaks, and then all the other characters are arriving, and they're like giving him orders, and they're still trying to plan their move, and they're just... It is tense, I will say. But, nothing really comes of it, and Visor 3 runs away and jumps into a dumpster really quick.
I liked that. It was like he jumped off the roof into a dumpster and broke his leg. Like, it was a real exit. It wasn't just like a Back to the Future 2 where he jumps off the roof and then he rises up on a bug fighter or anything.
That'd have been awesome.
No, he was so scared that he might lose that in true Yerk fashion, he took the option of hurting himself, possibly extremely badly. I mean, it's a good thing that Chapman wasn't down there with the van or something.
I'm sure, yeah. He was on his way, though.
Just Visor 3 and Chapman running around town in a van.
He's got an exclusive line to Uber.
It'd be like that Jerry Seinfeld show, driving with comedians, drinking coffee or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
getting coffee with comedians and driving around. Just Visor 3 and Chapman going through drive-thrus and talking about life. And anyway, but so Visor 3 gets away, and Axe is back in the woods, back in his home, running around at night.
Classic scene here. little night run through the forest, little Tobias chit-chat.
Yeah, and
all good stuff.
Yeah, he voices his worries about maybe Visor 3 has been back to the Andalite home world.
Yeah, and even Tobias realizes how ridiculous it is. He just doesn't want to tell him straight up that that's stupid.
Yeah. And also a weird little moment where Axe remembers one of his best memories on Earth, apparently, was when Cassie got him to morph Jake, and they had dinner with her parents.
Yeah, a little callback to a previous book, one that we thought was very weird.
Very weird.
But, it's a treasured memory for him, and why wouldn't it be? Because of all the food.
The food, and just his ego of thinking that he was pulling off the perfect Jake. Perfect Jake morph.
I guess so. And the discovery that Cassie is a horrible sociopath.
Just fond memories all around.
Right, and so after their little bromance talk, everybody gets together again at Cassie's barn. We're visiting all the local areas that we love so much to discuss their upcoming mission about H.A. the Third, we'll call him.
Yeah, and they go for the solution on the cover of the book. Cassie tells them about this gross morph that they could totally get, DNA, which they run by Axe. Can we morph from blood? Is that something we could do?
Scraping the bottom of the barrel here after that mole morph idea.
Yeah, and their whole plan is basically Visor's plan, is if we can morph this guy first, we can go to the president, morph into our bodies, or morph an Andalite in front of him, and reveal the Yerk invasion.
Dude, they should have 6 Aldershots all walk in at the same time and then start demorphing. Boom!
I know it wasn't planned ahead of time. I know this is an actual plan for them at this point in the book, but I love that in retrospect, all these plans to reveal the Yerk invasion, it would be horrible if it actually worked out.
Well, yeah. I think we've mentioned that before, too.
I know, and I love that they keep coming up, because it's like, no, Animorphs, don't do it!
What are you thinking? Yeah, well, the plan is that they need to get close enough to Aldershot to be able to pull that off. And Mosquito is seemingly going to be a hard one to get in there, right?
Yeah, they have to go that route, because they can't just go in there and morph out because there's going to be guards there 24/7. This is Secret Service. They can't get around it. And there's Yerk guards. It's too much. So the plan to get blood and more from that is shaky, but really the only possibility.
So after acquiring the mosquitoes, there's a whole chapter of that. They morph birds and fly back to the hospital, and because everybody else needs to go through extra stages in the demorphing and remorphing process, and Axe does not, he agrees to be the team's distraction so that everyone can change morphs around. So he finds a room with a seemingly comatose patient in it and demorphs, only to quickly be spotted by everyone. And this is the part that I was talking about, where by luck or chance or whatever, he runs into non-controllers.
Yeah, I mean, this hospital is not completely taken over. If it would have been completely taken over, then book number 6 would have been invalid, because that was the plan for that one. If you'll remember the capture. But
if I remember.
But anyway, so yeah, he caused a distraction by it almost seems like he's waiting for just that scream of the Andalite that reveals the Yerk. And when he gets it from one of the guards of H.A. the Third's room, he kind of does this Matrix-esque fighting, where he's like pulling guns out of people's hands and maneuvering around them and whipping his tail blade left and right. But there's too many people, too many guns, some Dracon beams mixed in there, and he just jumps out a window.
Yeah, he pulls a Visor 3.
he even says that while he does it. He talks about doing the same thing the Visor did. So he falls into just the most well-kept large bushes in the world that just completely hide him. And the guys up top, while he starts to morph into Mosquito to join the others.
It would be funny if the bushes were trimmed to look like a centaur. But if it were an animated show, they would do that.
Well, that wouldn't work for him because they'd know exactly where to shoot. But he starts morphing into Mosquito to join the others, who are already a few steps ahead of him, since he was the distraction. And
yeah, I like this imagery of this scene too, where he's laying in these bushes at the bottom of the window with shattered glass all around him, and they're firing guns down at him, and he's just shrinking super quickly. And I think they could do a lot of cool imagery with that.
Yeah, and it's
in a Wachowski brother kind of way.
Oh, not after Jupiter Ascending. I don't think they're going to be making any movies for a while. But anyway, yeah, it's funny that they even talk about how they keep shooting out the window because they don't want to be responsible for another Andalite bandit getting away and Visitor 3 finding out. He'll take him out immediately. And I do like to picture that this window is actually like a foot off the ground, and there's this tiny shrubbery hiding Axe, and they're just shooting out, missing him completely.
That would be humorous. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Axe,
I'm just surprised that he manages to, as a Mosquito, drift from ground level all the way up. I don't know how many stories. I don't know if they gave a specific count of how many stories.
It's lower than Viscer's jump.
Well, he gets a ways up there and into the hotel room and onto Aldershot's body.
Hospital room, not hotel room.
Oh, hospital room. He went to a hotel as a Mosquito. And yeah, then you'd think the mission's over or whatever, but no, there's a pup.
Oh yeah, but before that, really quick, I do want to point out, kind of interesting. You know, Kay Applegate loves to talk about the animals and imagine what their senses are like. Kind of a cool little notion here, talking about how the Mosquito, it's gonna be drawn towards blood, but there's a bunch of people in the room. So, how Axe finds him is actually his breathing and his hormones and everything versus the other people in the room who are, their hearts are racing differently and they're giving off different pheromones. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, they did. Cassie does bring up the
carbon dioxide.
Nat Geo
yeah.
notes on the animal that they are morphing this week. It's a nice little touch. I had surely not given much thought to the Mosquito. Living in Minnesota, I mostly just swat them.
Oh, it's terrible up there during the summer and near waterfalls.
Well, we love our state bird.
So yeah, like you said, though, there's Pop. I wasn't expecting this. This seemed like a pretty straightforward Animorphs plot. They go in, they scout, it goes horribly wrong. But they kind of mix two different regular Animorphs plots where, you have that first thing where, like I just said, and then you have the kind of Deus Ex Machina, someone popping or time freezing or something happening that they're going to
right.
go somewhere else or time travel or something else.
They do this kind of plot a lot throughout the series. Go places and do things that don't really matter in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting, though, because they brought this up fairly early on as far as when Axe was brought on board. The fact of what happens to their mass when they morph something small. And Marco joking about how, well, what if a ship hits our mass while it's floating a big blob in zero space? And so we investigate that. That's pretty much what just happened.
Yeah, the odds are supposed to be like astronomically impossible, but, since they talked about it, it makes sense that it would happen at least one point throughout the series, and this is it.
Darn Limist meddling.
You think he had anything to do with this?
If it's such astronomical odds, and no Andalite has even experienced it in, been able to document it, then... And maybe it's not so astronomical. Maybe just Andalites are disappearing left and right. And they
what? I'd say...
don't come back from it.
You got a good point. The Elemist obviously wants to hurt the Yeerks. And we know he's not above directly involving himself.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet that he would be willing to put the Animorphs on Lyran to do, the whole war there and do some damage just to pull him back.
Actually, I have a counterpoint to my original point that you just brought up as being a good point.
Touche.
I say
touche.
I say it's not the Elemis. I say it's Krayak. I say Krayak brought them here to have them survive, get on board this very, very specific Andalite ship, and shake all of their trust and their hopes and dreams with the Andalites being the good guys they're waiting to save them. I mean, think about it.
That is giving a lot of thought to what I believe is one of the most fatal coincidence flaws of this book.
There's no coincidences in this world. In this world of gods who are constantly manipulating time and space, specifically with these characters, I say there's no coincidences. So I would attribute this to Krayak because, I mean, come on, they get put into the range of this incredibly specific ship with the one Andalite trader in all of history. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know. So that's the scene, essentially, is that they get pulled into Z-space. Axe is able to contact this passing Andalite ship, and before they're all dead, they wake up on board the Andalite ship. And we're introduced to Captain Samoan Korath Gahar, or as I call him, Captain Sam. And he goes on to introduce his crew and ask Axe about where he's been and what the heck the humans are, and he even kind of comes off as a good guy in his first appearance here when he defends Elfangor a little bit. Did you catch that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch that? How they tried to build him up as a good guy?
They do. Surprised a dog didn't come onto the bridge and he petted him or something.
Yeah, right? A cat. It would have been a cat.
It would have been. No, cats are visitors, obviously.
We get this kind of short sort of segment of the book where they're aboard this ship, the Ascalon, is that what it's called?
Yep.
And, Axe is checking in on his buddies, and they're all freaked out and worried, and basically he just tells them to calm down, and there's not really much anything they can do, but they're in good hands. And
here's a point that's going to come up multiple times in this book, and Marco and Rachel especially are pretty adamant about it. They get fairly angry at Axe for immediately joining up with the Andalites and feeling comfortable with them and kind of distancing himself from the Animorphs at first. I don't blame Axe for this at all. I mean, this is kind of... I know he's had these experiences with the Animorphs, and he's obviously going to be friends with them and even closer with Tobias, whatever that relationship is. But, I mean, to come back, and he is in the military. I mean, to come back and his people and to be thrown into something he's trained for already, and he's already gotten used to that kind of regiment lifestyle, and it's, of course he'd slip right back into it immediately. Like, this is what he's built up his entire life towards.
Because you're an adult. They're all kids, and they're extremely cliquey.
They are.
And when one of your kid friends turns their back on you, all reasoning goes out the window.
And it's funny that I say that, and I don't blame Axe for this, when, the Animorphs were right for him to have stayed with him. But still, I don't blame him as much as they do.
Yeah, well, that's you and that's them. And this is basically a kind of a, I don't want to say cliched plot line, but it's a plot line that's been done in lots of stories before, where one character is forced to choose between groups of friends, and he picks the wrong group. So he's hanging out, talking to the Andalites, feeling good that he's finally back in good hands. They bring him up to speed on the war on Lyran, which is
where they're heading.
Yeah. Also not going too well.
Mm-mm. Although probably better than a bunch of super smart hammerhead sharks running around the ocean.
Well, yeah, I guess it is a good thing they stopped that. I don't know. I just imagine like Andalites like doggy paddling in the ocean on Lyran, and like sharks take them down. That was their plan.
Pretty much. But even Axe notes that once they get into orbit that there's not that many ships around. Doesn't seem to be going well for the Andalites.
Right, yeah. No, it doesn't look good, and even more shocking is the fact that the ship suddenly makes a surprise landing behind enemy lines, and Captain Sam reveals that he's been working for the Yeerks the whole time.
What a
D-bag. I want to share a little quote that I really liked. So this is when they're on the ship, and they are coming down to Lyran. In a calm Thoughtspeak voice, the holographic head said, "The action has begun on the continent. There are heavy Yeerk forces. Carry out Plan 7-4. To our Lyran allies, may your great god, Cha-Ma-Meeb, smile on you this day. And to all Andalite warriors, the people expect that every warrior shall do his duty." I just thought that was a great line to show the contrast between these two alien species, one of which clearly, has gods that they worship and admire, and then the Andalites who are just like, do your duty. Get back to work.
And it's funny that happens in a universe where the Andalites had direct experience with a god at one point.
Yeah, sort of. Although they lose credit because on the very next page, one of the quotes from one of the Andalites is, "Captain, we are on approach to land behind Yeerk lines. We won't have a prayer." They had to use that word specifically.
Oh, calm down. The Andalites have all their rituals, and they're the closest to like a Japanese type culture, which is a very religious based culture back in the day. So,
I know
those words stick around, and you can't say it takes credit away.
It ruined my non-religious Andalite comparison.
Well, calm yourself down.
At least I pointed it out to you.
You did. But anyway, the thing here, they've kind of been building up, since Axe has been on the ship, they've been building up two people, for the most part. They've been building up Captain Sam, who is a D-bag, as we mentioned, and is working with the Yeerks for no reason given whatsoever. He just is. He's the bad guy. And then they've been building up the tactical officer, which I don't have his name right here, but he's basically
not important enough.
Yeah, well, he's basically been railing into Axe this entire time and like shouting him down. And he turns out to be, after Captain Sam reveals he's been working for the Yeerks, and he kills everyone on board except the tactical officer, who he cuts off his tail.
Because that's like worse than death. For
100%. But when Axe causes a distraction using the other Animorphs who are helping him out
they
begrudgingly.
Escape with no problems. They're on. I believe they're in flea morph. Is it flea or fly?
It said a mixture of fleas, flies, and cockroaches. So
Right, yeah. That's so awesome. And yeah, they start distracting everybody by demorphing right on top of him.
yeah, they just needed a second distraction, and then Axe disarmed them. But I also like that we didn't have to stick around with the Animorphs. We didn't have to babysit with them and have a way to them figure their way out. At this point, they're the Animorphs. They're good at this. So, they got on the bridge pretty quick and disregarded Axe's telling them to stay put. So
yeah, we've seen them sneak past Yeerk technology just so many times throughout the series, but this is superior Andalite technology, and it's happening off page.
yeah, I like that. Yeah, I really like that we didn't need to be there. Like, it's just a given that they are sound in what they do. But so obviously they get rid of Captain Sam, and they the tactical officer is there, and he's not.
He lets them escape. He blows a hole basically in the ship, and everybody bails out.
Yeah, and he's not going to. He's not going to hold them and force them to stay with the rest of the Andalites who die in this huge explosion that's completely just meant to take out as many Yeerks as possible.
Yeah, suicide move.
Yeah, and it's cool that they did that little turnaround where, just like they were building up Captain Sam to be the good guy and building the tactical officer to be the bad guy, the tactical officer was pretty cool there at the end.
Oh yeah, they pulled the old switcheroo. Make the bad guy look like the good guy, and the good guy look like the bad guy.
Writing.
I'll never see it coming.
So now the
team
Animorphs are exposed and deserted on the Lyran homeworld.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a plotline that we have talked about in previous episodes, obviously, in the escape and stuff, and we wondered about this. Does this ever happen? And it's so obvious right now. But you know why it wasn't really obvious? Because they don't mention a damn thing about the Lyrans going to their planet, fighting that war on the back of this book. This is specifically the Stuck in Zero Space book.
Which they were there for 0.2 seconds.
Right, yeah. Again, it just seems a weird point of the plot line to focus on.
Yeah. But
to be the selling point of the book.
But they're here, and the marketing team, I guess, just wasn't. They couldn't get past the first 20 pages. That's what really happened. But the Animorphs are here, and Tobias is doing his scouting routine. They're
all freaking out, though. There's a good couple of pages where everyone's just pissed off and terrified, and
Axe is like shell shocked.
Yeah,
he's just not talking, and he keeps saying, "I don't know." After all these Andalites just died and kind of died for them, and yeah, it's pretty messed up.
We got some good emotion here. Tobias is looking around, discovering that the Andalites probably aren't doing so well in this war, this land war, so far.
Yeah.
And Axe is actually the one who decides that they should probably find the nearest prince. Prince Galluit is his name.
Who they say they can trust because he's the commander of the Yeerk or of the Andalite, defense. He's the head honcho, and he's spent his entire life dedicated to killing the Yeerks. So
he's a known Yeerk hater.
Yeah, he like lost his entire family to the Yeerks or something. So if anyone they can trust, it's him.
They took little Timmy.
But that's terrible. Why do you make me laugh at that?
Because you're a monster.
But to get to the ocean where Prince Galluit is supposed to be, under the waves, because they're on this very tiny, smaller than Australia continent on the Lyran homeworld. It's the only land there besides a few islands. To get past them, they got to get past Yeerk front lines, which are hardcore booby-trapped, and then Andalite front lines, which are hardcore booby-trapped.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. And we get one of the best lines in this book, and maybe one of the best lines just in Animorphs in general. To the Batmorph, Robin.
From Marco, of course.
I love that one. I didn't remember that. Yeah, but they're all bats. They're all flying around looking out for booby traps, and a weird thing happens out of nowhere. Tobias disappears just randomly.
Yeah, it just pops out. I don't know. Maybe it's because my age reading these books, but I immediately put it together that they were popping back into, back to Earth. I mean, of course that's what's happening. They popped here, they popped back.
Right, yeah. I don't know. I cannot honestly recall. I'm pretty sure I only read this book once as a kid.
I've never read this book, so.
Oh, you never read it? Yeah, right. And I barely remembered anything from it.
To be fair, I'm using my knowledge of the fact that they're all alive at book 53 in knowing that this happens. 19. I'm saying 53. Spoilers for the rest of the series.
No, we have no doubt in our mind that our heroes are getting home safe and sound by the end of this thing. But Tobias is the first to disappear, and after a little bit of freaking out about it, they all continue heading for the ocean. But this time, they're a little bit closer because they could just fly there in a quick sentence or two.
Yeah, but they did get through some crazy battle there for a minute in Batmorph, and they set off some booby traps and a little action scene.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice action sequence to back up, or to make up for that kind of high tensiony, drama-y situation on the ship. Mm-hmm. But they find the ocean, and they're examining it in all of its magnificent splendor, and Rachel is the next to randomly disappear.
Yeah, which, for them talking about how they believe that Rachel and Tobias could possibly be dead, they move on pretty quick. Cassie kind of freaks out for a second, and they talk about it for a moment, but they I think they know that they're not in serious trouble. I mean, they don't know, but they're not acting like they just died. We've seen that. We've seen that reaction from them, and that's not this.
Yeah, they're scared, obviously, because they don't know, if it's going to hurt, if it's going to be scary, where they're going. There's no real guarantee that they'll go back to Earth. I mean, they could be snapping back to Z-Space and then, floating there and dying again, for all they know.
Yeah.
So there's still a little element of fright to it. But it is kind of inevitable, and I think that contributes to how quick they are able to move on. They find the ocean, they dive deep, and they're about to morph dolphin, but Cassie brings up that they should morph sharks, which, of course, it just makes sense.
Since that was the Yerk plan to do that originally. Yeah. Which, it's great. I love that they tie those books together and that they're going hammerhead shark into the Lyron Ocean. That's pretty cool. Little tie-in.
Right. It is almost exactly what we were talking about. Yeah. Having not known that they would do this.
Now, this next part I think is a little bit of a cop-out, just a teeny bit, in the fact that they see a couple Lyrons, and immediately they have to take them out, because Lyrons are psychic and immediately will figure out their secret and could run off to Yerks, because there's a lot of Lyron controllers at this point. So they find out that, from the Lyrons themselves, that, you don't have to kill us, just bite that part of our brain off, and we'll be okay, and Yerks will float away, and we'll be all safe.
Right, yeah. They do have a very convenient disarming method, which makes me think that maybe Lyrons aren't the best controllers for them.
No, they're not at all. But
I mean, that psychic advantage, really not all that useful if the person has to get close enough that they can cut off your little dangling brain.
But, that aside, I think they just didn't want this to be a complete bloodbath. Even though the Animorphs kill humans like left and right. So,
well, not explicitly.
Well, they kill
sometimes.
Sometimes. No, there's been plenty of scenes where it'll be the aftermath of some fight, and it talks about how many human controllers are laying on the ground in bloody pools. So they kill human controllers all the time.
Yeah, it'd be a great kids show. It's a great show to try and do live action.
We'll throw this shit on Nickelodeon, and it would be great live action. Calm down. Just not for kids.
But after freeing these Lyrons, they are given permission to acquire them, which is nice that they do a little callback there.
Just so we don't have 6 pages of Cassie complaining about it.
Well, she does complain, but they do limit it a bit.
Yeah. And, it's also, I like the whole psychic moment where they all feel and know each other's secrets, or how they're feeling for like 20 seconds before they kind of get it under control.
Yeah. Something I forgot to mention a while back when they were morphing bats. This is when we got to find out what human body part Axe thinks is the most ugly. Do you remember?
The nose.
Yeah. Axe thinks there's nothing uglier than the human nose. Well, thanks.
Considering Axe looks like Voldemort, I can understand his his wonderment.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess I never even took that into consideration. Vastly different noses we have.
Yeah, we do. Then Voldemort?
Right. Oh, and then we had another great quote from Marco here when they're fighting the Lyrans. He says, "Hey, Great War, you can't tell who's on what side," Marco yelled. "What is this, Vietnam?" How many kids' heads did that go over?
It's not even about that. It's like, it's just weird propaganda thrown into an Animorphs book.
I know. I mean, it's funny. It makes me want to research Vietnam a little bit, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what this war and the Andalites and a lot of this is based off of. But it's just funny that it's so blatant.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's what makes it a little bit funny.
Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe the fact that Marco doesn't fully understand what he's referencing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Marco's a smart guy. I'm sure he knows exactly what he's talking about. Sure
well, after acquiring the Lyran morphs, they have a little weird moment where it's awkward because they can hear each other's private thoughts and like feelings and stuff.
As I mentioned, yeah.
Moving on.
But yeah, they find a Lyran city and swim around as Lyrans until they find the Andalites, which I thought this was weird. It's like there's Lyrans, swimming around the ocean who are all controllers, but this Lyran city is not taken yet. That was a little confusing.
Yeah, I agree. They pretty much swim straight into the Lyran city, and they're like, "Oh, everybody knows what we're here for and what we're doing," and they're showing us the way straight to the boss, because they walk right into this area where they're indoors, they're on dry land, they demorph, they're introduced to the leader, Prince Gallowit. He's very quick to, recruit the team to help fight the Yeerks, and Jake is even quicker to agree because they've got nothing better to do.
Yeah, and they're trying to hurry this along because they're pretty sure they're all going to be disappearing at this point. It's pretty serious.
Right, and then they go into this convoluted plot to... they have to detonate some bombs.
Well, no. See, I like this. This was cool.
Oh, you like this, huh?
Yeah, because it makes total sense. So they actually wrote this well because they bring it up multiple times, the fact that the Andalites look like they're losing and that they don't have enough people in orbit, and it's just like, what are they even doing here? It seems strange that they're losing this badly to what's supposedly a pretty important world to the war because these psychic, fish people. And I like that it was all a big ruse to make the Yeerks, feed into their ego, which is the Yeerks' biggest weakness. Feed into their ego, make them just storm this continent, the one piece of land that the Lyrans don't even care about.
Right, yeah, they did trick them by making them fight on land or fooling them into fighting on land, and that is clever.
Yeah, the whole continent is rigged to blow. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
And it basically goes with the necessity that all the Yeerks really have that can swim is Hork-Bajir, and they're not even the greatest in the water.
Yeah, they got little floaties on.
They got the water wings.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool plot. I thought this part was pretty intelligent. But
it's not bad, but it just seems like a random video game level sprouted out of nowhere.
If you say, yeah, they got to detonate some bombs, but you got to think these aren't just bombs. These are probably like, bombs put into the cracks of fissures to make the entire continent crumble into the ocean, and it's pretty badass.
I guess. And as Prince Gal is explaining all this, Marco's the next to disappear. Mm-hmm. Which, do we even care at this point anymore?
Well, at least they got a convenient science officer nearby to come up with a quick conclusion.
This was so great, yeah. As soon as Marco disappears, you there! Explain this!
Well, no, he's like, bring me a science officer. So I assume like an Andalite that looks exactly like Spock, who was the science officer on the Enterprise, comes out, and he's like, well, it's fascinating.
I imagine all the Andalites look exactly the same, but this one comes out and he's wearing glasses. Like 2 sets on his stock eyes and on his normal eyes. Hello, I'm the science officer.
Maybe a little white jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
But, so he fills in the exposition.
He lays out the Deus Ex Machina of this book.
Yeah, if you haven't figured it out so far, they're being snapped back to Earth. Or possibly Zero Space, where they're all dead.
Who knows?
But probably the Earth thing. So the rest of the teammates are like, okay, good, whatever, let's move on with it, because we're all about to die or get snapped back to Earth or something, so...
Yeah, they want to rush this plot along.
Mm-hmm.
They are out and about.
Yep, so they have to fight some controllers to get to this, cave, and it's full of snake bat things and that have echolocation, just like their Batmorphs, and Cassie disappears. Just a whole I didn't really care about this part.
No, yeah, at this part it seemed like, okay, we know what's obviously happening with them disappearing. How are they going to wrap this up? And I give it to you that detonating the bomb really quick before Axe is about to, get attacked by a controller and the bomb's about to blow up and then he snaps back at the last second. That worked to wrap up this story pretty well.
I thought that was kind of dumb, because it's like, I would say that while I was reading this, the second that Rachel disappeared, and this was obviously going to be a thing, I knew for a fact that Axe was going to be the last one to disappear,
Well, yeah, he's the narrator.
Well, I know, but that's kind of boring and obvious, It would have been more exciting for him to snap back and, not know if they succeeded or not. But, any other book, Axe would be, the second or third one to snap back.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
But because he was important.
They tend to throw Axe out kind of quickly.
I'll solve my own problem by saying, well, obviously this whole thing's being orchestrated by either the Elemist or Crayak, so of course he's the last one.
So the last scene here of this book is everybody returning conveniently to being mosquitoes in Aldershot's hospital room. They're back at the same moment that they left. And call me crazy, but Initially, I thought the reason that they even popped into Z-Space was because they were, smacked or something. But it was because they're caught in the Andalite ships.
They were brought into the field. Yeah, they were brought into the field of, not the shield, but, they were just in the field of gravity of a ship passing by.
Yeah, so that's how they got pulled. So they're still, whole, intact mosquitoes, right? And they are able to just get the heck out of there conveniently.
And really, it was just they didn't move or anything. It was just their consciousness that snapped back and forth, because we discover in this book, kind of a big discovery that we glossed over, that they aren't just some big wad of DNA or material in Z-Space. They are actually in their form, their normal form, out in Z-Space. They look like an Andalite, or they
so
look
do you think that when they were having this whole adventure on Lyran, the tiny little fragments of their matter that comprised that mosquito, do you think that was missing from their body? Maybe one of them had shorter hair or missing a fingernail or something?
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would have gotten into that. Could have been some David Cronenberg gross out scene where Cassidy's missing a fingernail or something. That would have been really cool. Which makes it even more gross. What if this happened when they were in Catmorph? Something that would have been a big chunk of
right. Oh yeah,
DNA.
Yeah. I mean, it could have happened in Dolphin Morph, and then what the hell did it look like?
Yeah, and even creepier. Where are they getting this mass when they grow? Are they pulling that from Z-Space creatures? Maybe there's creatures in Z-Space they're pulling mass from?
Z-Space is just kind of like normal space, where there are those raw materials floating there at maybe at an atomic or subatomic level, and that's why it appears as all just whiteness.
If you're talking about them actually transferring mass, because that's what we're seeing here. If they snap into their existence in Z-Space, and its actual biological mass is not just atoms or basic raw carbon or something like that, then they're not just pulling this mass from an asteroid, they're pulling it from biological creatures in zero space.
Well, so what does that mean? There are other things out there floating around? Or you think everybody who morphs shares a collective amount of mass?
It's possible.
What if
or maybe I kind of picture like there's some kind of you ever read or see the movie Stephen King's The Langoliers?
No, but you have told me about it, and it's been on my Netflix instant queue forever, and I just haven't been able to really dedicate myself to it.
Well, it's all about the fact that like as time passes, a few seconds before our present time, there's these giant Pac-Man-like creatures like eating time before us. So I picture Z-Space as completely blank space with ships going through it every once in a while, but there's also like this singular giant creatures floating around, and their mass is being pulled out for morphine, and they're dying.
Nope, I got a better way
time.
to solve this whole Z-Space mass conundrum. So where did they get the excess mass from? When the Andalites invented this morphing technology, all they had to do was drive preferably a suburban minivan through Z-Space and chuck out a giant ball of mass, of matter, or whatever they wanted it to be. I assume something that worked with, Andalite biology, and just leave it there in Z-Space.
What if... So what if the Andalites, they create this technology, this morphing technology, that they're getting mass from Z-Space. They know it has some kind of relation to Z-Space as far as transferring mass, and they don't know why it works. How great would there be if there was a future book that, as all these ships, these Yeerk ships, these eventual human ships, these Andalite ships, as they pass through Z-Space, maybe Z-Space is a convenient place to dump their onboard waste, into this empty space. You could just any kind of organic material.
You're talking
wink,
about
wink.
Space refuse.
Poop.
You're
Poop.
talking about
Space
the
poop.
Expendables, if you will.
I am. I'm talking exactly about that.
So
and
that's the extra mass.
That's where your grizzly morph comes from. Just a bunch of Andalite poop.
There's a reason why they call it grizzly brown, or brown bear. Wow, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways we can solve this problem. And there's also a lot of ways that they could have ended this book. Although they chose to just go for the simple, everyone gets together at Cassie's barn to crack jokes and have Axe kind of give up the wrap-up science lesson of the book.
Wasn't that mission we just went on crazy? I'm glad we can laugh
By
about
the way,
it now.
here's how it makes sense, kind of. And that's the end of this book.
They're a little quick to forgive Axe. I mean, I like his whole kind of speech that he gives, saying, from now on, Jake. In the middle, or 3/4 of the way through the book, he's like, "Prince Jake, you're my prince until you tell me otherwise." I liked that. So that's a little. I can understand a little bit of the trust coming back. I would have liked to have seen Marco kind of hold a grudge or something like that.
A grudge?
Yeah, for turning on them so quickly.
Oh.
Against Axe.
Well, obviously they couldn't do that. They didn't have the page count to add in extra drama. They had a lot of stuff going for it. So,
well, they never leave anything unresolved. I think you could eventually. You leave things unresolved without it having to be like a multi-part story.
Yeah, I think they do that at some points in the series.
Yeah, like a few points, yeah. They do.
Well, that's it. Shall we dive deep into our reviews?
Yeah, I think so. Do you want to go first? Or
No, you go first.
Okay.
Wondering which roller coaster has the highest top speed, or what exhibit is our guide's favorite in the park? Just ask them. They love to share their opinions and critical analysis to help you better plan your day.
So, reading through this, I found a lot interesting about it. I love anytime they go more into zero space and how morphing works and transferring mass and all that. I think that's all incredibly interesting and one of the best parts of this entire series. And a whole book about that sounds great. I'm all for it. And oh wait, we're also going to revisit the Lyrons, an interesting plot point that came up earlier and is obviously part of the overall war between the Andalites and the Yeerks. Again, I'm all for it. But for some reason, this book is just not as interesting as some of the other ones. I mean, I like seeing more Andalites. I like seeing the idea of them being treacherous. I like all of that. But there wasn't a lot of personal story to this book. Usually we have the narrators going through something, and sometimes it's childish or it doesn't work. This one especially was more concerned with its plot than any kind of character development in acts. And that concerned me a little bit and was less interesting to me. And they tried to go down some paths where he's worried about his homeworld, and they had this cool kind of confrontation with Visitor 3 that looked like it was going to go somewhere. I like the name dropping to Visitor 4, by the way, and the Lyron planet and how he's kind of in control of that war. But overall, yeah, I mean, I think the beginning started out strong, and going to Lyron homeworld and a lot of that stuff just started to get less and less interesting. And then the whole Batcave, run to the device, even as cool as the whole bomb plot device was and blowing up the continent, there's just cool elements and not very cool execution, not very interesting execution on a lot of the last half of this book. So I was really struggling between almost a 2 or a 3, which is pretty low for a book that I feel like I enjoyed. So I can't really go for a 2, but it's a really soft 3. Like 3 out of 5 Hewlett Aldershots the thirds.
Of course. You had to go with the very obvious one that I was going to go with.
Extremely obvious. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, I just don't think I'm going to be thinking about this book all that much, other than what it added to the whole zero space mass transfer thing. That's interesting and could hold up a few more conversations. But other than that, it's kind of like, okay, that was book 18. Now let's get to the dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, of course. You're rearing to go on those dinosaurs. All right, well, I think I can bang my review out fairly quickly. I agree with a lot of the things you said, but I enjoyed the book, I think, more than you did. It's sounding like I enjoyed it more than you. I love a lot of the elements and ideas that they present in this book. I just think that most of them weren't fully developed or executed in ways that were totally satisfying. There's a lot of room for improvement in this book, definitely. We talked about the strangeness of the X suspecting Visitor 3 on the Andalite home planet, even though it doesn't really make any sense, just to kind of shoehorn in his worry of traitors amidst the Andalites. And lo and behold, coincidence of coincidences, he ends up on the only ship with the traitor Andalite in the galaxy, in the highly coincidental situation of being pulled into Z-space. So already it's their coincidence stacking. And that's never a good way to start a book. One of the questions I had while reading this was, do they get to keep the Lyran morphs or not? I honestly don't remember if they use them anywhere throughout the book series. Do you?
I feel like I've heard people talk about them morph Lyrans at some point, but it's probably another book where they're somewhere with other aliens. It's probably not. They're not morphing Lyrans left and right.
No, I didn't think so. I can't remember another instance where they do it. Another thing I wish I could have seen more of was this whole mosquito blood acquiring plot that they bring up, because I don't know about you, but I was questioning how the hell they would do it. What was their plan exactly? They were going to suck his blood because they wanted the DNA that's in the blood to acquire it. How are they going to extract this blood from their mosquito selves in order to acquire? Because they have to be human to do it. They were going to
squish Marco.
I mean, I don't get it. I don't get what their thinking was there at all. And I think it could be examined a lot more. That's an interesting idea in itself, and it just was not developed enough in this book. I mentioned the huge coincidences that knock off a couple points. I'm not too sure if the Andalite traitors plot was ever dropped. I don't think there are any more Benedict Arnolds, as Marco put it, throughout the series. What I think, though, what would have really made this work, this particular story, especially the story of the Lyran War, which I think is one of the more interesting stories we've seen so far, is that they should have done it as a trilogy. We've already got a trilogy coming up. And I think this is where the Animorph series could have really bettered itself, is sticking with a story for more than a book. It worked marvelously for the David trilogy, and there's no reason why they couldn't have done these same ideas, but fleshed out over the course of maybe 3 books. They could even work it out so that they would do it with Axe being the first one, and then Cassie being the second one, and Tobias to bring up the last. And then it would balance out perfectly because they've already given a trilogy to Marco, Jake, and Rachel. Right? So there's all the characters.
I just wouldn't have liked this particular storyline if it was along the same route to be a trilogy. But
well, no, they would have expanded a lot. I think they would make it better. So to get into my review, I enjoyed the book based on the interesting ideas that it presented. It had really nice callbacks to all the other books. It fit snugly into the continuity. It had all the best running jokes. I mean, we got to see Axe's food freakouts, Cinnabons, all that good stuff's there. It's a very by the numbers Animorph book. I just think it could have been better than what it is. And for that reason, it gets a 4 out of 5.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like your review 100% matched your rating. It sounds like a maybe a little harder 3 from you than my soft.
I don't think you can go judging the enjoyment that I got out of this book.
No, I felt
4 out of 5 Ascalons. Thank you.
Ooh, nice. No, I could see a 4 out of this book. I mean, it depends on kind of the mood you go into it with.
I think the biggest...
Because there are some cool scenes. There's a lot of cool elements.
Yeah, the biggest problem, though, like if I could fix one problem, and only one, from the book, it would be the way they get home. I just hate that it was so inevitable, so unescapable, and so unimportant. It's another one of these Animorphs books that's, well, our problem's going to be solved by just dying or not dying or doing nothing or coincidence. And
it would have been cool if they were popping back into zero space, because their mass was still in zero space. So it would have been cool if they were popping back into that.
Popping fresh.
And they were popping into that, and they were suffocating again. And the only way to get back to their bodies on Earth is to mentally. Well, yeah. Oh my god, that would be great. I was gonna say something completely different, but no, that's a way better idea. If they had to, while they were suffocating, kind of reverse demorph from another plane of existence, demorph into their bodies, that would be crazy. And then they had to deal with the fact that they just demorphed in a room full of controllers.
It would have been even better if, in just like a paragraph, they'd have had a giant floating Ellimist head appears and just like blows on them, and they all wake up.
Yeah. But anyway, that's okay. That's our review of book number 18.
That is book 18. That is episode 20 in the can.
In the can. I'm just ecstatic for our next review.
Oh yeah,
I'm really excited.
Next time on Thoughtspeak.
I'm doing the artwork. I'm pumped.
Are you going to make special openings and closings and intros and outros and zippity doos and
don't go crazy. We don't have
whistling
time to
bung holes, Husker do's, Husker don'ts.
I don't think we have time to do all new openings and closings.
No, we don't. But you could throw together a couple audio tracks from Jurassic Park and call it a day, right?
No, I care more about our openings than that.
Nope. Throwing Jurassic Park on top of the cold opening from the first couple episodes that we used.
No, we don't want to do that because that's what every Animorphs podcast has done. I'm not kidding. There's 2 other Animorphs podcasts. When they got to Megamorphs 2, they just put the Jurassic Park music over it. So
let's not do that.
Yeah, but hey, maybe once we get to the David trilogy, we'll have some new openings. Who knows?
Ooh, tantalizing.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, point is, I'm incredibly excited. My girlfriend's excited too. She's become quite the listener of our episodes. She's caught up.
Oh, she's a fan?
She's not only a fan, she's an avid fan.
Wait, has she liked us on Facebook?
She's liked us. She's given us a rating on iTunes.
Wow, a rating on iTunes? That's like one of the nicest things that anyone listening to this can do for us.
I mean, giving us a ratings on iTunes or reaching out to us on Facebook or, doing any of those, it makes me want to get the episodes out faster. Does it feel like it to you?
Yeah, especially when people write to us at our email address, which is simply thoughtspeakcast@gmail.com, and tell us lots of nice things about how great we're doing and encourage us.
Yeah, and we've had such a boost on Twitter at Morphcast. It's crazy. And we've got almost 88 followers on there now, and rising.
Really? Wow. That is impressive. Our very first episode is about to hit our 1,000th download. That's
really
nice. It's at like 977, 980. Probably.
Yeah, and overall, with all our episodes, we have over 10,000 downloads now, right?
No, not 10,000. I don't. Wait, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
We do.
Did we do that math?
We did.
I always forget math.
Yeah, no. We have almost 800 downloads per episode. Besides the big ones, which are nearing 1,000 or over 1,000. So
we're getting there. We're close.
I'm pretty sure we're over 10,000 at this point.
No, I know we are. Yeah, we're doing really well. Still 21 5-star reviews on iTunes, and I believe we're looking at 14 written reviews. I just know that because it's been like that for a while now.
Look, I mean, we are obviously just another podcast asking for ratings and feedback and everything else, but I gotta tell you, with how busy we are, if we did hear more from the fans, if we saw that there was a community that really wanted us to be putting these out, right now we're doing these mostly for us, for our own enjoyment. If there was really a thriving community asking for these episodes each week and really pushing us and giving us ratings on iTunes and all of that,
it would sure
cause
as heck,
more people.
It would sure as heck make us get to this super special Megamorphs episode all the quicker.
Yeah, and the whole iTunes thing, that's not just for us. It's not just to feed our ego. If we get more ratings on iTunes and we get them quickly and get a bunch all at once or so, that's going to make us get into the newer noteworthy section on iTunes, which is going to bring so many more people into the, Andalite Yerk battle. And just seeing this podcast and so many people out there who read these books would jump on the podcast and jump on to listening if they just knew it existed. And we can only do so much marketing ourselves. So to have iTunes ratings, that leads to more people seeing that the podcast exists in the first place.
Yeah, it's a definite help. And plus, I check it like religiously, people. You don't realize how addicted I am to just clicking that refresh button, wiping the tears away as I see.
I told them that's not about our ego.
I just like to contradict things that you say.
I know.
So that's it for this episode, and next time Megamorphs is going to be really special because we have the possibility of bringing in a new host, a new guest host. Please let me clarify,
I don't know.
Guest host.
Yeah, I gotta talk to her. I mean, I don't know how excited she would be to a podcast, but it's funny because Liz, my girlfriend, that's who we're talking about, guest hosting. She loves dinosaurs. It's one of the reasons I'm in love with her. She's a huge dinosaur fan. And she's incredibly interested in Jake, Marco, Tobias, Rachel, Cassie, just from listening to our podcast. She's never read any of these books before.
Yeah, that's important to note, that she is basing her opinion on the series solely on what we've said about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know how actually interested she is, but maybe if she listens to this episode, and maybe if a lot of people write in and goad her a little bit, maybe she'll jump on next week. Not next week, whenever we record Megamorphs number 2.
No, remember, we're a weekly podcast.
We are, very weekly.
Yeah,
Bi-weekly.
and if Liz is, if she's not somehow capable of doing this, we've always got Nate.
Oh, I'd love to bring Nate back on.
Maybe we can have both of them.
Oh my gosh, we're expanding.
We'll see. Or maybe we can bring Nate in for the trilogy.
Ooh, oh gosh, I can't wait till the David trilogy. Cannot wait.
Well, we've got to go through some heavy hitters first. Megamorphs,
Big ones.
and Cassie, and
Number 19? Oh, 19's huge. So, okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up. We're going to sign off here, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys stick with us, and even if you don't, give us tons of ratings, and, it is great to know that you guys are listening, and that you enjoy us talking about Animorphs, and that we're bringing some perspective to it that interests you. And
I like talking to the people on Facebook. Come on out and say hi on Facebook.
Yeah, Mitch talks to a lot of people on Facebook, and I'm just trying to market and coordinate and try to get Michael Grant to talk to me on Twitter. So,
and we're still posting to Reddit every episode.
We are. That's true. So, all right. Well, we're done. We're gonna stop talking now, and hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you join us. Look out for our next episode, which is another big Megamorphs one. Expect us to go all out. We love our Megamorphs episodes.
We're gonna go back in time.
On behalf of everyone here at the Gardens, we hope you've enjoyed your stay and welcome you to come and see us again soon. Or, as they say on the Serengeti, Tafadali emtu, kupata jambo hilienje ya kichwa yangu.